In the year 1999, gaming giant Nintendo released a game named Super Smash Bros. For their wildly successful console, the Nintendo 64. The game was a unique mix between a fighting game and a platformer, featuring various popular Nintendo characters battling it out on various different stages. While initially intended to be a casual party game for younger or more inexperienced players, the game soon developed a cult following amongst fighting game fans. This community was further strengthened after the release of Super Smash Bros. Melee, the GameCube's successor, with its various quirks and exploits giving rise to a dedicated group of fans, creators, and professional players who all devoted countless hours contributing to the community. Nintendo themselves have been notorious for being unsupportive and occasionally even antagonistic towards the community, due to them disapproving people trying to play their game competitively, as it contradicted their philosophy that it should be primarily for casual players. Ironically, this approach has only strengthened the fanbase as a whole further, with many players organizing and funding their own tournaments. During the early 2000s, many players began to accumulate popularity online due to their high skill levels, with some of them still being active to this very day. Despite the dedicated and passionate fanbase, the game's reputation in recent years has been tarnished by a series of popular players being accused of, among other things, pedophilic behavior and sexual assault. The legitimacy of some of these allegations has been debated and contested by many online, with arguments surrounding them spreading to completely unrelated spaces on the internet. This has resulted in Super Smash Bros. Players often being ridiculed and stereotyped as being creeps or degenerates, with many memes being created to reflect that. However, despite the high amount of publicity many of these players have received from the mainstream media, there is a controversial individual known within the Smash community whose story, unlike previous mentioned cases, involves no pedophilic actions or sexual assault of any kind, but is still extremely bizarre and fascinating, which is what we will be focusing on today. In the year 2005, a New Jersey man by the name of Lucas De Lorenzo would enter his first official Smash Bros. Melee tournament under the moniker Inui. Though he didn't win the first tournament, the experience would soon inspire him to pursue competitive Smash Bros. Gaming, and he would go on to enter numerous competitions in an effort to improve his gaming abilities. Within the first few years, he would garner a fairly positive reputation. While far from being a top player, his skill level was consistent across numerous different games in the franchise, something that is rather rare due to the wildly different mechanics and varying character stats across the series. He was also extremely adept at cooperating with other characters in doubles matches, earning a few impressive wins across his lengthy career, building connections, and becoming known as a solid and consistent player in the Super Smash Bros. Competitive gaming scene. Although on paper Inui was a well-respected member of his community, he was not without his faults. While fairly good at the game, Inui was known for taking losses poorly and often trash-talking his fellow competitors, a habit that earned him a reputation for being toxic and only would become worse as the years went by. This would come to a head in 2013 when he would experience his first major controversy. At the time, one of the largest tournaments was named Apex. In 2013, they were set to have their fourth competition with over 300 players participating. In order to participate in the tournament, players needed to qualify first. And so, as a result, Inui signed up for the 13th Northeast Championship, in the hopes of qualifying for Apex 2013. During one of his matches, Inui hurled insults at his opponent, at one point allegedly even calling him racial slurs. Ryan Ford, who at the time went by the username Unknown522, did not take kindly to these insults, and proceeded to put Inui into a chokehold position. In the aftermath of this incident, Ryan was banned from participating in future Apex tournaments, though the punishment received by Inui was never publicly stated. Sometime between 2015 and 2016, Inui would relocate to La Crosse, Wisconsin, and by this time had become considerably more mentally unstable. Over the years, his posts on social media had become more and more erratic, and his presence online was therefore much more controversial. His reputation suffered greatly because of it, and these antics resulted resulted in him being banned from participating in many local tournaments in the state of Wisconsin. These bannings also coincided with various personal struggles Inui had been dealing with him often posting about them regularly on his Facebook profile, though he received little sympathy from onlookers. In a post made on July 23, 2016, Lucas vented about the loss of his mother and lamented his loss of friends. Things would only continue to get worse for the former Smash Bros. Player from there. Throughout the following months, he would publicly state that he had been evicted from his apartment and that he had now succumbed to homelessness. In September of that same year, Lucas's erratic behavior would escalate, and he would be arrested for selling meth with an accomplice in rural parts of the county he resided in. He was charged with a third-degree sale of a narcotic and fourth-degree possession of a controlled substance. Despite the seriousness of the charges, De Lorenzo would seemingly manage to avoid major jail time, eventually being released on probation for his drug-related crimes, though his life would not get better anytime soon. During mid-2017, he began residing at La Crosse's Tent City out of desperation. Tent City was essentially an area where members of the homeless population resided at the time. It was located in the northern part of La Crosse, Wisconsin, and consisted of makeshift shelters that were used by those who could not afford housing. Unfortunately, many of those living there had been displaced due to flooding, with many being forced to move to higher ground or leave the area altogether. Lucas was, at the time, residing there. During the month of May 2017, Lucas became involved in an altercation with a 57-year-old man who was also residing in Tent City at the time. Allegedly, during the altercation, the former Smash competitor slashed the leg of his victim with a katana sword, leaving them with a 3-inch cut in their leg. He would, of course, flee from the fight, but was soon caught by police due to him fitting the description given to them by the man he had attacked, as well as the fact he had been seen carrying the sword by numerous witnesses over the course of the previous weeks. On the surface, this attack seemed completely out of the blue, but upon looking at his social media posts at the time, it's not hard to understand why this happened. He had mentioned that he was struggling, as he could not find an address to get his probation transferred to La Crosse. He talked about his legal troubles, his struggle to maintain sobriety, and said that he had been awake for days on end as he could not find anywhere to sleep. This was a man who had truly been broken by his inner demons. It would be easy to dismiss his behavior as bizarre, random, and erratic, but given the context of what was going on at the time, it's unsurprising that he would eventually snap. Upon his return to social media that December, he would reveal that he still struggled with homelessness and had 4 open court cases against him, stating that he had inner demons similar to those of Raven from the popular animated television show Teen Titans. Despite all these incredibly dramatic developments happening in his life, this was far from being the end of his story. After all the tumultuous events he had been through and the hardships he had dealt with, the man formerly known as Inui decided that enough was enough, and from that point on would begin his transition into a new lifestyle. Lucas did begin to start turning his life around, becoming a devout Christian and attempting to piece his life together by getting back into the workforce and participating in local charities. Interestingly, over time he would begin to become more and more vocal on his political opinions, voicing his disdain for the modern Democratic candidates and support for the Republican Party. The only relevance this truly has to the story is that these posts seem to, for the most part, replace the life updates that he had once frequently posted, and his new hard shift into conservatism was possibly the result of his newfound faith in God and Jesus. On July 26, 2021, Lucas would make a post on his Facebook giving an update on his current life. In it, he announced that he was now working as a dishwasher full-time for $11 an hour and had obtained an apartment in downtown La Crosse. Although he did admit that he was not staying completely sober, he did say that he was putting forth the effort and attending church regularly. In the replies, when asked if he would return to Super Smash Bros., he explicitly stated that that part of his life was over due to him wanting to focus more on his career and religious faith. Since then, he has avoided posting on social media for the most part, and it is unknown whether he's still working as a dishwasher or what he is currently doing with his life. However, with any luck, it will be a life devoid of controversy as the once infamous gamer retires from online life.